Hello, today I'll be coding a bees and bombs animation, the one you see right here. And if you can't tell what's going on because of the zebra illusion kind of thing, it's exactly the structure you have here. So it's a cube of cubes. So you have 2 cubes along each edge, 4 cubes on a face, and 8 cubes in total. So let's start coding that. As I said, 2 cubes along each edge or along each dimension. Same thing. Then we're going to compute the number of cubes on a face, and that's going to be this raised to the power of 2, and we're going to have the same for 3D, so just replace that with 3. And we're also going to do the number of faces for a cube, and the number of edges for a square face of the cube. So that's going to be 4. We're also going to compute a base angle, and this is going to be 360 degrees over 360 without degrees. Sorry, this is not CSS. Okay, and this is going to be my 3D assembly. We're going to have a loop. Put the cubes there, then within every cube we're going to have another loop, so for I starting from 0, I smaller than the number of cube faces, I'm going to have a cube face. So let's see these cube faces. We're going to give them an edge length that's a quarter of the minimum viewport dimension. So cube face, set these dimensions, width and height, and just give them a background just so that we can see stuff. Okay, now position everything absolutely, so all divs. Okay, put the assembly in the middle, so top 50% and then left 50%. Okay, and now I'm going to need to set a margin so that everything is in the middle. So this is going to be minus half the edge length. This puts the faces all in the middle. Now for the assembly I'm going to set the transform, but before that I'm going to set transform style preserve 3D, and this is it for the div. I'm not going to set anything else. I'm going to set a rotation here, and this is going to be minus 35 degrees. This is going to be around the x-axis, and then I'm going to have something similar like this, except it's going to be rotate y and 45 degrees. Okay, now let's see stuff better and add a box shadow. And this is going to be, let's make the offsets 0, make the blur something big, and make this red. Let's comment this background. Okay, this looks better. So now that I've done this, let's start positioning the faces on the cube. I'm going to do this with the transform rotate 3D. By the way, I have an article about how this whole thing doing a cube works. I'm not going to explain it here in detail. I'm just going to link it in the description. So the vectors along the x, y, along the third axis, I'm going to have always 0. Here I'm going to have a calc. I'm going to have a multiplier times, which is 1 by default, times the base angle. Okay, and then I'm going to have a translate along the third axis. This is going to be half the edge length. Okay, now I is going to be 0 initially. J is going to depend on it. 1 minus I. So whenever I change I, J updates automatically. So here I'm going to have something like style, and I'm going to have cube face, nth child. So the first 4 faces are the lateral faces, and once I'm done with them, I move on to the top and bottom face. So this is after the first lateral faces, and I have as many lateral faces as many edges my faces have. So that's going to be n plus the number of edges plus 1. And here I'm going to switch I to 1, and this also changes j. And here on the assembly, I'm going to set the base angle. So our style just put this like this. So this gives me a good start. Now I'm going to set that multiplier. So I'm going to start with a condition. So my condition is if I is different from 1 or 4, and that's going to be modulo 3 equals 1. So if I modulo the number of edges minus 1 is different from 1, this is my condition, and I'm going to have a possible style. This is going to be my m multiplier, and here I'm going to need to interpolate stuff. So my condition is it a lateral face? Then it takes the index. So if it's a lateral face, then it takes the index. Otherwise, it takes minus 1. And this is my condition. And now I'm going to set the style here. Depending on the condition, is going to be either that style from above or null. So this should now do it, and it gives me the cube, which is great. Now let's start positioning the cubes. First of all, we're going to start by positioning the cubes on this face in 2D. So that's going to be a transform, rotate, and here I'm going to have a calc, and it's going to be a multiplier k for the rotation. So this is going to be times the base angle, and this only works in the particular case where we have 2 along each edge, but we just want to simplify things. Yeah, we set this k for the rotation here, we set it to 0. And now we also have a translation here. So translate, and we're going to have, again, half the edge length. Okay, now let's handle the k for the rotation for all on a face, so on a slice, whatever you want to call it. So here I'm going to have another loop, and this is going to go all the way up to the number on a face in 2D. And let's say it's going to start from 1 because, well, we don't really care about the first. And we're going to have cube, nth child, and this is going to repeat for every slice. So n plus, and here I'm going to have I, and here I set the k for the rotation to that I value, and this distributes them in 2D. Now for 3D, I'm going to add a third dimension here. So 3D, and here I'm going to have a calc, and I'm going to have a k for the translation times the edge length, which I need to interpolate. Okay, and this kt is 1 right here. So we're going to have another similar loop here, and this is going to go to the number of cubes I have on an edge, and this is going to be I times plus 1. This is going to do my kt. For the translation, it's going to change it. So this should do it, and since it doesn't do it, let's see what's the compiled result. Come on. 1. Okay, and I have 0 here, so it should be working. So I have cube nth child. That looks fine to me. And Katie, oh okay, this is 0. Yeah, that's why it didn't work. Okay, so it works, but it's not centered. So in order to do that, I'm going to use another constant value, which I'm going to set right here. So this other constant value, this is going to be, again, I need to interpolate stuff, half of the number per edge minus 1, and I'm going to subtract that from here so that I go backwards. So that's going to be, okay. Now let's start setting some backgrounds, some decent backgrounds here. We're going to start with one color, so that's going to be black initially. I'm going to have a second color, which is invert that first one. Now I'm going to have a list of stops. That's the first color up to 25%, then sharp cut to a transparent, then transparent up to 75%, then sharp cut to the first color. Okay, and now that I've done this, I'm going to have here okay, that's no good. Linear gradient 45 degrees, that color list on that stop list, sorry, that's not degrees. Okay, so this is starting to look like something, as you can see. This is going to be minus 45 degrees. Okay, and one more thing I want to set here is backface visibility hidden. Okay, so one more thing I want to do here is set the background color. That's the second color. Okay, so now I'm starting to see something, but they are all with black corners, and some of these have white corners, as you can see. So we're just going to invert half of them. So we're going to have a p value here, which is 0. And for even cubes, so nth child to n, we're going to change this p to 1. And now on the faces, I'm going to have a filter invert p. So this would do it, except we get a SAS error, and this is because it takes to be the SAS function and not the CSS filter function. So in doing that, we're fixing things a bit, as you can see here, but it's not quite right. So to fix that, we're going to add the K for the transform here. So we're going to offset the rotation. Okay, so this is the result we wanted. Now we can get rid of that box shadow. And something else we can do to make things look a bit better, we can set a filter on the body. So that's going to be filter blur 1 pixel, contrast, and I got rid of those nasty lines. Now just look at this. As you can see, I have some white lines there, and there I have some black lines, and now applying this filter, I just got rid of them, which is great. Okay, so this is for the static part. Now let's move on to the animation part. We're going to move this transform to a position custom property, and we're going to set this to this position. But since we set this to a custom property, we need to interpolate these values in the transform. Okay, now that we've done this, we can move on to the animation. So we're going to have, what we have here is these cubes scale down, they rotate, they scale back up. So we're going to have a scale, but before we move on to the scale, let's collapse the face thing. And let's add a function here so that we simplify things. Function, this takes a factor. This is for uniform scaling. Return scale 3D factor, factor, factor. This is just so that we don't have to write factor, factor, factor 3 times. Actually, I'm just going to write it once, so why? I don't know, whatever. Scale, actually, and here I'm going to use a factor. Now this factor is a custom property and it's not really going to work like that. Okay, and it's not going to do anything on its own, except here I'm going to do CSS register property, and I'm going to have, first of all, I'm going to have a name, and this is going to be, as I said, factor f. Then I'm going to have a syntax, and this is going to be number, and I'm also going to have an initial value. This is going to be 1. So this restores the whole thing to what it was before. And then I'm going to have a rotation, so rotate. Actually, for now, just... And again, I'm going to do this exact same thing for that angle. This is going to be angle here. And the initial value is going to be 0 degrees. So this restores everything to its initial state. So now I'm going to have an animation. I'm going to set an animation duration here, first of all. Okay. Let's maximize this. Now it's going to need to look at the JS for now. So keyframes, scale, 0%, 25%. The factor has its initial value. And then 50% to 100%. This is scaled. So it's a scaled version. Now let's set this scaled version here. So this is going to be okay, so I'm doing that. Now I'm going to set the animation. So animation, scale, animation duration, ease in out, infinite, alternate, and this should now do it. These, okay, this does it. Now I'm going to have a second animation, and that's going to animate this angle. So that's for the rotation. Now this is going to take double the time because this is not going to be alternating. So 25% from here becomes 12.5, and 50% minus that is 35.5. 50 plus that is going to be 62.5. And again, this is going to be my initial, and this is going to be the base angle. So I'm going to add the second animation here. And this is going to be a rotate, double the animation duration, and this is going to be just ease in. Okay, but they all rotate in the same direction, and I want this to vary with whether it's odd or even. So here I'm going to have a calc actually. So calc, and I'm going to multiply this with 2 times p minus 1. And as you can now see, they rotate in different directions, but they always rotate around the same axis. So let's do something about that. And we're going to do something about that from here. We're going to make this a position, and again set it to the transform. Okay, let's make this like this. Okay, this does it. And now we're going to have another set of keyframes switch, where we're going to switch the axis of this whole thing. So we're going to have at 1/3, we're going to have something pretty much like this, except around the x-axis. Okay, and then something else. And this is going to be around the y-axis. And my animation is going to be animation switch 6 times t steps 1 infinite. So does it look like this one? Like this, and like that. Okay, let's see. This. Okay, this one should be with minus. No, actually it was fine like that. No, this one, the Y one, should be with minus. Actually, the final one. Okay, this is just guesswork at this point. Okay. Okay, just leave it as it is. So 2 are in a different direction for some reason. Now I'm a bit confused as to which axis is which. let's see. Okay, so that definitely fixed one. And I think this one as well. Nope. That's not the one. And okay, I'm just going to leave it like this because it's good enough. So yeah, this is it for now. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, one more thing I could do here. I could add a bit of a mask so that it's not just a black and white. So I'm going to do an HTML after. And this is going to be top 0, right 0, bottom 0, left 0, content nothing, and the background is going to be a semi-transparent black. So this is going to be my background. That's going to be my overlay. Okay, so yeah, this is it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want me to be able to do more stuff in the future, please consider supporting my work in one of the ways explained in the description below. You can do it with a donation. Any amount can help, or you can get me something off my Amazon wishlist. The links are there. Or you can at least share this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days, because I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching.